Good evening. I'm Father Russ Carmichael, and this is Street Talk. Tonight I got a great show. I'm into one of the best things I like more than anything else. I'm into union business. Obviously, most people know I'm a longtime union guy. Started out as a Teamster, IBEW, AFL-CIO, an ASME organizer, a Teamster organizer, and I'm a member of 1199. And on my show tonight I have Deborah Chernoff, who is 1199 policy director. And we're going to have a good conversation with her. Across the table with me, as always, okay, my troublemaker, okay.
Just in the Capitol.
Just in the Capitol, Dominic Cotton, okay, who I went out and for those of you who would like to know, today I was in New Bedford, signed up 158 people for our new Street Talk organization that's over there, and Street Talk 2 is in the works. We'll be on Comcast over there, and we've got some organizing in New Bedford, Mass. Okay, so I'm going to bring Dominic over there to teach him how to get people on the show. One other thing before, Ray, I know you're going to call me. I love you, Ray, and you're going to be on my show
June 11th.
June 11th. Dominic called you up. I talked to you. Ray, June 11th, you're on the show. Bobby's at home right now with Darren. Okay, bless you guys over there. You're at home. Okay, we'll probably try to get Bobby on the show. Okay, Bobby, you got to pick up Ray, okay, at his house, and then you got to bring him back on the show. You can put it down now on your calendar, June 11th, you and him on the show. Maybe Darren will come on too. It'll be a good show. Maybe even get Jennifer on again, okay, and you guys can cause all kinds of trouble here.
Yeah, you and I walk out of the room.
We'll leave. One other thing, okay, for the individual who wants to know if I've been ordained, I was ordained a Methodist, I was ordained a Pentecostal, I am not Roman Catholic priest, never said I was. You can, I believe it's, the show is...
Town Talk.
Town Talk.
Yes. It's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube. Kathy Johnson
Yeah.
interviewed me why I am called Father. You want to know about it? Look it up, okay? Father is about me. I don't care if anybody believes in anything. They can have God as a rock. But that's a whole nother show. That's a theological show. I'll do that another time, but not right now. Tonight is Union Night with Deborah.
Pleasure to be here.
Oh, bless you,
Deborah's
Deb. Okay, and I know about a lot of hard work that you've done, and maybe right away explain to my audience 1199. We say 1199. We're healthcare workers and stuff like that. I am a member of 1199, and I happen to be an independent living skills trainer, and that's not usually covered under your thing, but I love you guys anyways. Okay?
Well, we love having you as a member. 1199, it represents about 25,000 healthcare workers in the state of Connecticut. All of the healthcare workers who work directly for the state, people who work in nursing homes, people who work in hospitals, people who work for private agencies that serve people with developmental disabilities and mental health issues. And most recently, we represent home care workers who provide supports to people in their own homes.
Which is what we do, and which I do, and actually Dominic.
Yep.
Dominic. One thing I got to say, Lee, you're out there. You're going to be watching this show, okay? Lee Mabry is one of your organizers, I believe, is still with you.
That's right.
And a good friend. I know Lee. Lee does tremendous amount of work down in the southern part of the state. Last I knew, like he could be any place right now. So I just wanted to say, Lee, we don't forget you. And Dominic, you can lead back into.
Well, I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I've actually represented organizations that I believe the International Brewers Union wanted to come in. The Teamsters wanted to come in.
Teamsters, and you were on the other
And
side.
I was on the other side, and we managed to block them from coming in
coming in.
to a facility. It
That
was
because I wasn't at the table.
Well,
But it's I look at this slightly differently. I know for certain industries and organizations, I fully believe that if there's not a way to hold people's feet to the fire, then nothing's going to really change. And I do believe that unions for certain places, and certainly in dealing with the state, and bringing a large, diverse ideas across the state, bringing them together is very difficult. And I know if we didn't have unions, that people wouldn't get more money or wouldn't be able to get the sort of things that, legally they should be, or to get the recognition of those things. So I'm not an anti-union on one side, but I do think that there's some industries where it doesn't work as well, but.
Well, Dominic, as Father Russ will tell you, all sins can be forgiven if you're truly repentant.
Yeah, we'll give you absolution. Right. But obviously, in this area, a lot of people don't know the history, which was really good. You and I were out in the other room and we were talking, and we just moved on it a little bit. There's a couple of things I want to ask about. Obviously, the minimum wage question, that you're dealing with, maybe a little bit about the lawsuit. But at the root of this, the kind of union that we're talking about was racially, how can I say that in a nice way? Well, there's nothing nice about it, okay? Some of our people were exempted from fair labor practices, right?
Back in the depths of the Depression, they passed the Fair Labor Standards Act,
Right.
which was supposed to offer people a minimum wage, protections around overtime. And what happened was, in a deal with some of the Southern Democrats, certain job categories were exempted. People who worked in other people's homes were exempted. Agricultural workers were exempted. And that has its roots in Jim Crow laws. The Southern Democrats did not want the same rules to apply to a largely minority workforce at that time. Has become now largely minority and immigrant. But these jobs were regarded as extensions of essentially slave labor. The mammy who worked in the kitchen then became the nanny.
Right, the
And
maids.
the maids.
Yeah, right, field
And
hands, everything.
Field hands,
Right.
and the people who provided non-professional health care, what we would call direct care now,
Direct care.
hands-on care. And that legacy has persisted since 1938. We're still fighting that battle today. Earlier this year, the Department of Labor issued new rules that said that the exemptions for minimum wage and overtime would now go away for people who provide services in people's homes, and that has been blocked by a federal lawsuit. That lawsuit's going on now. We're pretty confident that that is going to change, and it has to change because in order to recruit and retain the kind of workforce we're going to need to serve all the people who are going to need services going forward as more and more services move into people's homes and out of institutions, we're not going to be able to pay people less than minimum wage. Right now, if you provide services in someone's home, they can legally pay you less than minimum wage.
Yeah, exactly. 1 minute, I got a call, I guess, coming in. That's quick. Good evening, you're on Street Talk with Father Russ and his guests.
Hi, Father Russ.
Hey, Ray. What's up?
Hey, Father Russ.
Yes,
It was nice talking tonight.
that's good. I
I
know.
called the station.
Yeah,
It was really nice speaking to you.
and when are you going to be on? What's the date?
On June 11th.
June 11th.
You
You
got
got
it.
it, okay? All right, I love you. And I hope you're doing okay, okay?
Father Russ, is
Yeah.
that Dominic?
I'm right here.
Hi, Dominic.
How you doing, Ray?
Turn that
Hey,
radio
Dominic.
down.
We're all good. I got your phone number. I'm going to call you and remind you. Don't worry.
And Deborah is right here, Deborah Chernoff, okay?
And Bobby's gonna pick me up.
And Bobby's
He's gonna
gonna pick you up,
That's
okay?
right.
Yep. How are you, Dennis? Dominic?
I'm doing good.
Can I speak to a young lady?
What?
Young lady.
I can't hear you, I can't.
Hi,
understand.
ma'am.
Deborah. Oh,
Deborah.
that's Deborah. He's saying hi to you.
Hi, Ray.
Wants to talk
How are
to
you?
a young lady.
Yeah, okay.
How are you?
I'm good, Ray. How are you doing?
I'm going to be on Father Russ's show June 11th,
I heard.
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
I'm looking forward to it.
I like Father Russ. I like to be on his show, once in a while, He's
Okay.
a nice guy.
All right, Ray, have a good night. We'll catch up to you
I'll
later.
catch you later, okay? Thank you
So
for
you're going to give me a
calling.
call on that day, right?
Right. We'll
Time
call
and
you.
everything.
Yeah. Mary will keep reminding you
Hey,
too.
Father Russ.
Yeah. Come on, what?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can he pick me around 7?
He'll get you. We'll talk about that later. We got about 4 weeks,
Yeah.
okay?
Because early's good enough for me, I have nothing to do.
Okay.
Take care,
Sorry, I
Ray.
gotta go.
And thank you, too.
I gotta go, okay?
Have a good night, buddy.
Thank you, Dominic.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye, Ray.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Dominic.
Bye.
Good night, Ray.
Good. God bless Ray. Ray is a loyal fan, 13 years, calls all the time, watches my show, Dennis's, and a couple of others. Okay.
I think you bring up a good point about the quality of the workers.
What?
And the reality is that as the state tries to shift more and more of the people from institutions out into the community, because, that's the way the federal government's going, the quality of care, quite often you get more one-to-one attention. But the reality is, somebody who's coming in doing home health care is not just dealing with the person with their activities of daily living. They're also, dealing with all these other issues that are there at the same time. And I know for some of the people that I've had, hired PCAs and other things for, it's difficult work because it's not just helping them with those things. It's all the mental health things or the brain injury things or, when they have memory issues or other things. It's not just,
Going on, right, exactly
somebody
right.
who's elderly and frail that just needs like this kind of help.
Right, transfer to something like
Yeah.
that, are you doing, no, it isn't. And that's really, obviously, we know, because we work in the situation all the time. It can be extremely difficult. And the differences in the quality of the levels of persons that you need in a given situation, depending on the client that you, and I hate to use clients because our thing is community, okay, so all our people are extended family members, and are dealt that way, and you kind of have to adapt to us in our situation, because they're family members, and you deal with all the issues that any family deals with, plus the situation with whatever the care issue is and everything else that goes along with that.
It can be both very challenging on an emotional level and
Exactly.
very challenging physically. This is a job in which people get injured very often, and one of the tragedies is because of the peculiarities of the workers' comp statutes in the state of Connecticut. Most people who work in people's homes providing health services are not covered by workers' comp if they're directly employed by, we use consumer or client, but they're directly employed by the person or their
Right.
family. And they have no protection, no insurance.
Right.
And it also functions as effectively as an hours cap because you have to buy insurance if someone works for you for 26 hours a week or more. And so you may wind up having to employ multiple people, not even if you're only getting 40 hours of service,
Right.
because you can't afford to pay for the
Because of workman's comp and
workers'
stuff
comp.
like that.
And
Yeah, exactly.
that's an
right.
issue that we're dealing with right now.
Oh, there's all
at the
kinds of
state.
issues. I mean, there's vacation issues, there's time off issues, there's, you know, you don't get no time off. I haven't got time off in 13 years.
I get time off, I just don't get paid for it.
Yeah, right.
Well, and it's a serious
It's-
problem,
it
which is
is.
only going to
It-
get worse
it-
because the needs of the population are growing.
Are increasing, exactly right. And there's only so many dollars, too. I mean, that's the serious issues that are here. Again, when I talk about wages, okay, we were talking a little bit about the minimum wage, and where are we with those things? I mean, from the union perspective, where are we?
Well, the people most of the people who are members of our union in home care do get more than minimum wage. The exception is people who work either overnights or 24/7 shifts where they're paid a per diem, and the per diem is less than minimum wage. So most people are getting their services, those kind of services, through agencies because they need backup. If somebody is sick, if somebody has to go away or has their own family emergency, they need backup, and it's a big burden on the family or the individual to try to arrange their own backup. Agencies are not always reliable in that instance anyway, but in theory, you can get someone. And that's a shame because a lot of the money, the dollars that are going to the agency's overhead, particularly the big commercial for-profit agencies, would be better invested in direct services to people who need them and getting them more hours. But, you know, the agency's got to make its profit also.
Yeah, we were saying they get around somewhere north of $25 an hour, somewhere in that range.
That's right, and the worker's lucky if they're getting half of that.
Right.
Yeah, and it depends on what you're dealing with. Okay, and that's, you know, and nights are the hardest thing. I mean, I deal with nights, and nights are the hardest area. As we were talking, you know, we may have somebody that's walking around and dangerous and stuff like that, and then you may get in an argument with the state. You're asking them to increase the areas and everything else like that. Then they're going to tell you that your person's sleeping or something like that, and I say, well, please, give me a break. You know, or you have the situation where a fire can happen and stuff like that, and doors need to be opened, person needs to be taken out, and stuff like that. There's a lot of things that are not understood in the work that, you know, is required.
Well, this is a fundamental shift in the way that we deliver health care in this country. And the shift is happening, but our policies and our procedures and our dollar investments have not caught up with that shift. And that's going to be a significant problem. We need to invest in training. We need to invest in workforce development. Right now, if you, for example, think that you should be CPR certified because you're dealing with someone who may have an emergency, you have to pay for that training yourself.
You gotta absorb that, right.
You know, this workforce development, I mean, the state has invested a lot of money in putting up a website. And no money in training. We actually have money in our contract for training. And we have not been able to get the state yet to move on the issue of, you know, who's going to do the training, how's it going to be conducted, what kind of training is going to be available. We want to create career paths for people so that they can make this their life's work. There are many, many people who love doing the hands-on care, who don't want to work in institutions. But, you know, they have families of their own they have to support, and they can't do it on $12 an hour and no benefits and no workers' comp and no insurance and no pension and none of the other kinds of things that people need to be able to support themselves and a family.
Exactly. It's interesting because one of the things when we were talking to the union people, we were talking about the training development because, you know, that's a big thing with me. You know, it's in anything we do. Okay, My belief, obviously, is education is the way that you climb the ladder and stuff like all things like that, and you want that to happen, but it's expensive.
It's expensive, and right now, for example, if you provide services to someone with developmental disabilities, you have to go through this online training with the College of Direct Supports. Well, that doesn't work for everyone. Not everybody has access to a computer, believe it or not. People have language difficulties. They can't go to the library and use the computer for 15 minutes to get through these various modules, and many of the people who I know who've been doing this for a long time say that the training really is not particularly relevant to doing the hands-on care. It's just so that you can have a credential. And there's no training for people who are doing PCA work outside of the DDS.
They look at it as you have to come in with those qualifications. Or
it's up to the person who hires you to tell you what they want you to do and how to do it.
Yeah, that's difficult. That's about as good as when they send somebody out to train them how to be an employer. You went through this recently with Darren.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly right. Yeah. But my initial training, you were my initial trainer.
Yeah.
You remember?
I used to do the brain injury training for the state. Yes.
Way back when,
Yeah.
right? Right, which is really funny and stuff like that. And now they do it. Now they don't do it personally. You used to do it.
We used to do a live training.
Live training.
It was
and stuff
three
like
hours.
that.
3
3 hours
long.
of morning.
Now it's taped.
Now it's taped. You go in and you look at a video.
Right.
Okay, so you can't even ask the video questions.
No.
So I mean, I got a thing about that. You know what I think about that. So so you sit there, you look at the video, you take a test, but that's not trained. That's not hands-on. You want somebody. Obviously, Dominic's there, the experience, or whoever's doing it does the training. Then you can ask them questions about stuff. You can't do that with the video stuff. And the computer system is much the same way. It's a root type of thing without no practicality behind it, in my view.
Look, this is personal care. It's got to be hands-on training. That's the only way it's going to work. And people are sort of left to their own devices to train themselves. If we really think that this work is important, and I think it's important, I've been a caregiver for members of my family. I know how hard a job that is, and that's when I knew the people, and it was basically dealing with physical needs. If we really honor the work, then we have to honor the people who do it, and we're doing a very poor job of doing that. Home care was particularly difficult to organize people because they're working in individual homes. It's not like you can go to the cafeteria and talk to people. But we've built a network, and people understand that this is first and foremost about people getting together and having a voice. And secondly, this is all taxpayer money. That is a very political thing. We have to be politically active, and we are up at the Capitol, up in the LOB, every week during session, sometimes multiple times a week, chasing people, talking to people, testifying.
You and I were the only two people who testified about the elder care waiver.
It's true, and that's a kind of. People think it's a kind of a technical thing, but it's very important because this is the direction that we're going into, and there's a lot of talk about, stakeholder input, but there's very little effective stakeholder input.
To that end,
there you go.
we're talking about one of the big things we wanted to do was to give stakeholder input. But the only way you can get stakeholder input is if you actually notify them or let them know that changes are about.
Wow, what's coming on?
So
right.
we actually got the Human Services Committee to write a bill with our suggestions about directly notifying everybody who's on a waiver when it comes up for renewal, when they're coming up to make amendments to the waiver, so that they understand what changes are there, so that they can have written input, or to be able to know and be advised that they're going to have a public hearing on the issue.
And when it's going to be?
And when it's going to be,
Okay.
and to take into account that not everybody is capable of utilizing the computer, especially
right.
people who are on the elder care waiver or have developmental disabilities, whose parents or family members might need to assist them. And they're doing so much work with their children anyways. We figured for them to be able to mail this out. So we got it through the Human Services Committee. Everybody agreed with it. It was a unanimous decision.
Right.
And then it got sent over to appropriations. And essentially, it got gutted. Everything that that we were requesting within it, that everybody agreed to on a policy, got gutted for dollars. And I'd even try to negotiate with the chair. I tried to, because they came up with a dollar amount, and I'm not really sure where they came up with the dollar amount from.
Right, it was horrendous.
I broke it down into, okay, these waivers don't all get renewed all in one shot. I'm
Right.
like, it's probably like a waiver or two, like per year, that gets renewed. They're on 5-year renewals. I mean, the cost is not what they were putting it out to be. And I laid out for her like different ways that they can do this. I said, but the reality is information, transparency, and inclusion, because that's what it really comes down to. Costs a stamp, and you've got to be able to send it out to those people. And
Yeah, I mean, posting something somewhere deep in the pages of your website doesn't work.
Doesn't
No.
work. No, and people don't have the access and disability. Couple of things are wrong. Number one, they do not understand our situation with the care. The priority is the individual in the care, the way we have care now. It's all upside down. The client is supposed to have input into everything that happens. That's the law. That's under ADA, that's under the federal law. They still don't understand that. They still think they can impose things on people. But to have that, you do need notification. If you don't have notification and direct access to all your people, then you're going to have difficulty. Of course, my answer to the difficulty is that okay, we did the best. We couldn't find common ground, so I'll look to litigation. Okay, that's the way. I mean, that's the way we have to go, and it's too bad that you can't sit down and say, look, don't you understand? This is a situation where they have to have input. You have to give them input. There's no way around that. Okay, so if that is the case, then you've got to give them notification. You can't go about changing things without their input. Otherwise, you're subjecting yourself to lawsuits, and they still don't get that. They don't get, they haven't grabbed that logic yet, and it's too bad, And of course, we'll win, like we usually do.
I guess the
No
question,
offense.
question for me, and obviously you're up at the Capitol, so you have a much larger perspective on this than the times that I do go up there. I mean, sometimes I feel like we're constantly dragging people along, and I always want to know: is it the Social Department of Social Services or DDS or whoever it is, or does the administration have an idea of all the things that go on within that, or is it kind of like the top end bureaucracy, maybe below the commissioner, that maybe feels like they need to have this sort of, I don't know, level of control over things?
I think change is difficult for everyone, and I think when you have your sort of area of power and administrative control, it's uncomfortable to have that shaken up. The administration sees things from the 30,000 foot perspective. They don't know all the details. But, this was a particularly challenging year, as we all know, for all kinds of things that we were interested in doing and improving because of the budget deficit. Advocacy is not easy work. You have to have a lot of patience, and you have to have a lot of persistence. I mean, sometimes our motto is just, we got to last one day longer than the other side. And, we've had bills that we've tried year after year to pass, and sometimes you make no progress, sometimes you make incremental progress. But it was, being able to organize home care workers was something that was a long time in the making. In California, where it really got started, and where there's a lot of consumer-directed in-home health and supports, it took 10 years to get to a point where you could create a structure where people could have a union, because home care workers are not covered under National Labor Relations Act. It was another exclusion. And so you had to sort of create a public authority. But again, these are all taxpayer dollars. The state has a very important role to play. The state is essentially a co-employer. While they're not directing the day-to-day work, that's the job of the individual or their family or their surrogate. They set the wage ranges, they determine which job duties are reimbursable under Medicaid and which are not.
Exactly, right.
We have this statute that limits the number of hours that people can work based on the workers' comp thing. And case managers are sitting down and determining, what people's budgets are going to be for these things. So state is, they're not an innocent bystander. They're not a pass-through. They have a lot to do with it, and that's why we negotiate with the state for the conditions that apply to personal care assistants, and we're very hopeful that this workforce is going to grow. And it's going to have to grow.
There's no, the demographics, I mean, you can't help but grow. But I mean, who's going to care for us? This is what, this gets into immigration too. There's nobody going to care for us. And guys like me, I'm 72, chances are, well, I shouldn't even be around anyway. I shouldn't have made past 76, and I'm still here. So you can imagine the people are living. I was with a lady, 96 years old today, in a house, and she's pretty spry. Okay, now she's got a caregiver and stuff like that. She said, "Father, oh, good guy," and I came. 96. God bless her. God knows if she's going to live to 100 or 110. I mean, you had to see this lady. So this is what's happening. We're living longer and stuff like that, requiring medical care. Many of us fall, get hurt, stuff like that. Next thing, you need your assistance and stuff like that. Who's gonna?
Well, we've gotten a lot better at keeping people alive longer.
Right.
Both in terms of people living longer, but also, people, for example, who used to die early of cystic fibrosis are now living much longer. We haven't gotten very good at giving people the quality of life that they need. And we know that the population of what they call the very old, which is the population over 85, is the fastest growing demographic.
And it's amazing. Yeah, it's scary.
And, all of these things are going to kind of come to a head unless we invest in the workforce that's going to supply these services to people and allow them to remain in their community, and not remain in their community nominally, which is like shut up in their house by themselves all the time, but able to go out and do things.
Do stuff, right? I mean, this is the amazing thing. 96 years old, they get her. She's out running. She goes shopping. She goes. You got to be kidding me! They take her all over the place.
Well, my mom is 92 and she's still driving. So.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, it is. It's an amazing thing today to see you know. And under the proper care, you got a real quality of life, and that's the problem. You can have a real quality of life, proper care, if the finances are there, or you get thrown away, as the recent guy that we got, that God knows, we don't even know if he's in the street, for crying out loud. His thing ended, you know. So what do you do? So you got that big.
Well, I think that was
spectrum.
the big battle that we dealt with last year.
Exactly,
And
right.
really what it came down to were two things. One, we had no knowledge of until the very end, which was there was a federal lawsuit.
To justice.
And they were under judgment that they had to, because they were warehousing people in nursing homes that were privately owned,
Right.
and not giving them a way to be able to get into the community. So there was that aspect which we didn't realize at the time. And then there's the other one, which is what this really came down to, was dollars. And they wanted to put a cap on the amount of money because they wanted to kind of, I don't know, rein in our program because we have a 200% individual cap. And I think the highest anybody else had was 150. But we as a group were, and as I went up and we had a big battle with DSS, I showed them that the way that they'd been figuring their finances, they were saying that they were close to like 98% of the total cap for everybody altogether. Well, what it came down to was they had one of their factors, which was the hospital level of care. And when they figured out the hospital level of care, they figured it out on the average population, which might be in a hospital for 6 months. But our population is based on a year long. And so they had their numbers all screwy, and that's the way that they sent it in originally. So our program is very cost effective, but what they wanted to do was they wanted to put a cap. And really, the only people that this blocked were people who were in nursing homes. And if they need 24-hour care, there was no way that they could do it under this. And I gave them at a $10 an hour rate.
You could still
With
can't
the amount of hours that they were.
You
And I'm
couldn't do
like,
it.
you can't do it.
You
And they even
can't.
gave me the sheets. They gave me the information.
gave them the
And they
information,
told me
right.
how many of these people weren't going to be like able to like, you know, come out if they were under our current program.
Right.
And that was our biggest complaint within all of this is, you know, look, I understand cost savings. I think a lot of families do, and a lot of families will do what they need to do in order to get their loved one home. So they may have them live with them, and they may do the nighttime hours with them and have the services in place to make it cost effective. But unfortunately, for a lot of these populations, and this is the greatest fear that I hear out of everybody, especially from the developmentally disabled, they go, well, what happens when I'm not alive?
Oh, yeah, that's major. Yeah, we deal with that all the time, and I, of course, I can understand that, you know, and I talk, you know, my daughter's young. My daughter's an officer in the military, Coast Guard. Husband works in the same, he works healthcare, stuff like that. So my thing to answer that, because we dealt with Auntie Gail, was to try to develop a younger staff. So that, you know, you're hoping that if I go and I croak on somebody else, that you have the staff there to deal with that. That's not an easy, there again, it's nothing's easy and all this stuff. And so when you're talking about planning and the kind of stuff that we do, people don't think about that. They say, what? Wow, you're developing like a career path? Of course. I got somebody that may come in as a companion, and they may be 20, or they might be 20. Well, I want that person on a career path because I want them to stay. Because I got a brain injured individual that is very unlikely to get better, that needs 24/7 care. Parents are in their 70s or 80s, okay, and I'm where I am, and so I will need to make sure that that person that's dealing with that, I want you to be around to be able to take care of that, which means you got to get paid, and you need a career path situation, because you're not going to be living on $11 or $12 an hour your whole life and develop a family as you're going along either.
Well,
You know?
I think one of the encouraging developments this year, at least from the sort of advocacy and activism
Right.
point, is that, people with, who have family members with developmental disabilities, have been stuck on the waiting list and stuck on the waiting list and stuck on the waiting list. And it's not really a waiting list, because they're being told that, you were told 10 years ago that, when it's time for your son or daughter to move out of the house,
Right.
that there'll be a residential placement for them. And now they're being told, well, we're not doing those anymore. And, so we've seen the formation of a group called Our Families Can't Wait, that has been very effectively advocating for their kids and getting people to understand what it means to be a parent in your 60s or 70s or 80s, dealing with your child, however old that child may be, who's
Right.
got some significant difficulties, and knowing that one or both parents have to die before that person's going to get a placement. And then it's going to be an emergency placement,
Right.
not necessarily the right placement.
Right place, exactly right.
And in the meantime, there are people who've been on the waiting list for 15 years and they're still waiting. But those parents have really found their voice this year, and I think it's starting to make a significant difference.
They have a good caucus up
We
there,
got-
and the intellectually and developmentally disabled caucus up there, and they got some very powerful people that are on their side. Beth Bai, who's on the Senate side of appropriations.
And that comes from people
And-
getting
yeah.
out there and telling their
Oh, yeah,
personal
it's-
stories.
Oh, exactly right. I mean, our group did a fabulous job about that, all of them, all of the individuals bringing up and doing around the state. I mean, you got to give everybody, credit on what they did. Everybody worked very, very hard to show what really happens in houses. I mean, we've had senators going into disabled families' houses and stuff like that, and leadership bringing up our extended family members so that they, and on the one hand, you feel kind of funny because you feel like you're putting them on display. On the other, there's the reality of they have to have the service, and these people need to be exposed to what you're talking about.
Well, I think it's, most people have either been in a nursing home or known someone who's been in a nursing home, so it's not such a foreign concept. But when you're talking about, what kind of care does somebody either with a brain injury or profoundly developmentally disabled or severe mental illness, what does it mean to care for that individual? I don't think there's any substitute for actually seeing it in action.
And that, yeah.
Otherwise, it's something you hear about, it's a statistic. And as people have heard the stories, gone into the houses, seen what care is needed and what kind of care is going to be needed, it's stopped being abstract and then started
Yeah.
being very real to them.
You did tremendous work, with that whole area, and then having our people, on the other side of the aisle too, from me.
He laughs. I'm his Republican liaison.
Yeah, they actually let me in their doors a couple of times because of you.
They'll even talk to him at the backyard parties too.
What do you do at my party?
We had some interesting
Well, that's some good organizing.
people that we met up with because we were working on a justice issue, not just
So, not
not just this. So we
Because
needed,
I work on the prison issues and
yeah. So
stuff
we
like
needed some
that.
help
so-
on both ends of the
Yeah,
spectrum.
that's another whole topic of
Oh, well,
discussion.
yeah, that's we don't fool around with anything that's easy. One other thing, because I don't want to get out too late, the lawsuits that happened.
Earlier this year, well, supposedly starting at the beginning of this year, the Fair Labor Standards Act was supposed to be extended to all domestic workers, which would have meant that people who do home care and personal care services would have been covered. And due to a lower court ruling, that was put on hold. That particular suit has been fast-tracked, so the Department of Labor has actually done a very effective job in arguing as to why this is an important change to make, including going into some of the history of how it came about. And you know, taking the position that this is really, a lot of times people see it as, well, we only have so many dollars, right? So if we give more money to home care workers, then there'll be less money for services. That kind of zero-sum thinking is a way of, you know, setting two populations, both of which are needy, against each other. If the pie isn't big enough, you know, if the pie isn't big enough, we have to make a bigger pie. We can't say, you know, your slice. And the fact of the matter is, absent being able to pay people a decent wage, and starting to raise the minimum wage to something that people can actually support themselves on, well, you are not going to be able to find people. As the economy improves, they're going to go work someplace else, not because they want to, but because, you know, they got you know, a loaf of bread costs them just as much as it does for a millionaire to buy one, but it's a much bigger percentage of their wages. And so this is important not only for the workers, but for the people that they serve.
Well, I think when you're looking at the state, I mean, number one, when you're talking about health care, it's not just state dollars, it's federal dollars.
Absolutely.
There's a 50% or more match.
Depending on the waiver.
Depending on the waiver from the federal government. So it's not just state dollars. So every dollar that they pay for in the state actually puts $2 into the state's economy, because you get another dollar from the federal government.
That's right.
And when you're talking about lower wages too, if somebody doesn't make enough, then they're going to need to be on public assistance. So then you have people that you're having to pay out for everything from food stamps to, you know, them being on Medicaid as well, and other things along those lines. So I mean, when you take a look at the bigger picture, it's like, well, I'm taking away from this person, I'm taking away from that person. I don't think that a lot of people understand that. No, if you're bringing this up, then they're able to pay for these things themselves instead of having to be on state aid.
It's all coming out of some pocket. It's just a different pocket.
Yeah, it is. It's a different pockets that it's coming out of, and then how do you do that? And again, you got to build a bigger pie. Number one, that's the reality of where we are today. That's what's happening, and stuff like, you got to care for the people. I mean, and it's federal. I mean, what you're saying, it is federal. Okay, and it's all across the country. It's not just Connecticut. It's okay, and you have this growing population that has to be cared for, and it's however, it has to be done. And if you don't, and it's exactly what you're saying, if you're going to keep the Jim Crow attitude, okay, because that's exactly where it come out of. We didn't get into that discussion too much. Bruce, Representative Morrissey, and I will do that on another show.
Yeah.
But it all comes out of that whole attitude of slavery and stuff like that, and that we've got to change. That's the reality.
And if you look at the people who are doing the work, it's primarily women, it's primarily people of color, and it's very different immigrant populations depending on where you live.
Right.
Those are the people who are doing the work, and you know, not paying them a living wage means that, you know, it's not just them. Their families are going to be living in poverty for a long time until we start taking this issue seriously and treating people with the dignity and respect that they deserve, so that they can go out and take care of our families, our brothers, our sisters, our neighbors' kids. I can't think of anything. When I was a caregiver, you know, it was very difficult work, but it was extremely rewarding. But it takes its toll on you, and we need to, you know, start treating that job as if it's just as important as, learning how to code so that you can develop, a new game for people to play.
I love it. That's why I'm a union guy. and that's why you're a union gal.
That's right.
All right? And hey, pal, I can't believe it. Look at the time, right?
It always flies.
What do we have next week?
Next week, we have Senator Paul Formica.
Our favorite guy,
Paul's
Paul.
coming back.
Paul's coming back, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
he's doing good work up there. We love you, Paul. We know you watch us too. Okay, so glad to have you on. And
Yes.
this was a great night. And hopefully you'll return and come back. And
I hope with good news.
I was
Yes.
just going to say we want good news.
I'd like
right?
to hear
So
good
stay
news.
tuned.
I'd like to hear a lot of good news.
Okay, and I want to tell you, Ray, June 11th, you'll be with us, okay? And I want to thank my audience. Paul's next week, and I'm going to run the street. Please pray for all of us here. I need all kinds of prayers. And we'll talk about my ordination at some other time, right? That's a good one. I always love that. Okay? But please take it easy. See us next week. Paul will be here with us. God bless.